Today, again, I have been asked to take this domain, acute renal failure, for a new batch. Now, this was covered by me for one of the previous batches, but again, I have uh, basically modified the material to make sure I've included some recent advances and also to try and make it more comprehensive and just to change it a little bit, even if there are repeaters. The different causes of AKI, if I was to look at the different ways in which AKI can occur by dividing it into the different compartments in which damage can occur. Just to start off with the prerenal azotemia, obviously when there is a reduced cardiac output, this can occur in hypovolemia, heart failure, hepatorenal syndrome. So there is basically less blood flowing into the kidney and this causes a renal failure. So very simplistic classification. This is something we read during our undergraduation days. So pre-renal, intrinsic renal, post-renal, right? We basically divide it at the area where the damage is occurring. So pre-renal, like I said, it is a reduced. It is either an absolute reduction in the arterial blood volume or an effective reduction in the arterial blood volume, which is causing a reduction in renal perfusion. But the parenchyma remains initially intact. So can you give me an example of a case where there is uh, no reduction in the effective arterial blood volume, but still patients develop prerenal AKI? So that can occur in cases where there is redistribution of blood. So classic example would be a hepatorenal syndrome. Okay, so because of your splanchnic vasodilatation, there is more blood going into the blood and helps reduce perfusion of the kidneys. Another classic example would be sepsis. You might not have an overall hypovolemia, but because of redistribution and vasodilatation, you might develop a prerenal AKI, right? So this is also an important, these are important causes to remember. Then you might have intrinsic renal AKI, where you may have damage to the tubules, the interstitium, the glomeruli, or the vessels. And post-renal, like I said, can be an obstruction to the urinary flow at different levels. This is probably the most rapidly reversible cause of AKI and should be immediately picked up. But remember that you probably always get mixed pattern. So stage 1 patient is one who has either a more than equal to 0.3 milligram per deciliter rise or a rise of 1.5 to 1.9 times the baseline. And according to the urine output criteria, if the urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 to 12 hours, then they fall within a stage 1. Stage 2 is a patient whose creatinine has gone up to 2 to 2.9 times the baseline, or if their urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for more than equal to 12 hours. And a stage 3 patient is basically one who has a 3 times rise of the baseline, or whose absolute value of creatinine is more than 4, or a patient who has required renal replacement therapy irrespective of the creatinine level. There may be other ways of classifying AKI. So you may have a non-oliguric versus an oliguric versus an anuric AKI. This is also important for prognostication because by and large, your non-oliguric AKIs have a better prognosis. You can also divide it according to the timeline. So you can have an acute kidney injury, which is developed within 7 days. You can have an acute kidney disease, where it is between 7 days to 3 months, and obviously a chronic kidney disease where the damage is lasting for more than equal to 3 months. You can also classify it on the dominant mechanism. So it may be a hemodynamic problem. The AKI may be septic, nephrotoxic, pigment-related, glomerular, or vasculitic, or obstructive. And also by severity and support. So AKIs which don't require dialysis, AKIs which require intermittent RRT, AKIs which require prolonged intermittent RRT, AKIs which require continuous RRT, or peritoneal dialysis. Post-renal AKI basically is occurring because of an obstruction. The obstruction can be at different levels. It can be at the urethra, it can be at the prostate, it can be at the bladder neck, ureters or renal pelvis, bilateral obstruction, or signal functioning kidneys. All of these can cause a post-renal AKI. So again, the classic causes: BPH, malignancy, stone, clots, neurogenic bladder, catheter blockage, or retroperitoneal fibrosis. There may be certain ICU specific problems like a raised intra-abdominal pressure, high PEEP with low venous return, renal venous congestion, nephrotoxic combinations, or contrast along with shock. So how do you check it at the bedside? Always make sure your catheter is patent, routinely scan the bladder, do a renal ultrasound early, and also check the IAP in a tense abdomen, because always try to pick it up early because it is often rapidly reversible. So how do you approach hyperkalemia? You have to first confirm ECG changes. First step is obviously to stabilize the myocardium, give off IV calcium gluconate or calcium chloride. Then the next step is to try to shift the potassium intracellularly. So give off insulin, glucose, and salbutamol. And you have to finally remove the potassium. So you can use diuretics, binders, and the best modality is obviously dialysis. So different AKI is not just a problem with the kidney. It can affect different systems. So in the brain, it can cause uremic encephalopathy and long-term problems like dementia and stroke. In the heart, it can cause a congestive heart failure, arrhythmia, or precipitated ischemic heart disease. In the lung, typically it causes acute pulmonary edema. It can alter hepatic metabolism, and it can even cause problems in the gut, where it causes an altered gut microbiota and accumulation of uremic toxins, and overall it causes systemic inflammation.